data before you can make a comment on that. So I've not said anything like that, but it could be, so we have to be very sure of what's going on. Everyone, please. So this is what we have with the red blood cell metabolism. Red blood cell is broken down into hemoglobin, and the red blood cell is released. Hemoglobin is broken down into heme and globin. The globin is the protein component, broken down into amino acid, which can be subsequently used to generate more hemoglobin. And the heme component, the iron component is removed. The heme component is broken down into bilirubin, which is a green pigment, and they substitute to bilirubin, which is a yellow pigment. So this bilirubin is conjugated at the level of the liver. There are enzymes in the liver that handles the conjugation. Those enzymes, we call them glucuronal enzymes. Don't worry too much about that. So those enzymes will ensure that the bilirubin is converted into the form that can be excreted via the feces and also via the body. And that's where we get to the bilirubin action. Good? So if the liver is diseased, then it's all.
Thank you.
The bilirubin is what will now spill into the blood and become what? Something. So what is the danger of having very high level of bilirubin in a baby?
Say that again, Professor.
Very high level of bilirubin, and nothing is done.
Then the baby gets jaundice, no? He just continues.
We have jaundice, but jaundice is just a sign. But what will happen to the baby?
Oh, he'll end up with liver problems. Oh.
Bilirubin is a very dangerous thing. It will damage the brain.
Oh. Wow.
So most especially what the cerebellum.
Oh.
There's a condition called kernicterus. So that can happen when the bilirubin is left too high and not untreated. The baby cannot with the brain damage. Good?
So how is that? When it's supposed to be the liver that's affected, not the brain? I don't understand.
Remember, the liver is not affected. The liver is the guy that processes the bilirubin.
Okay.
So that's the thing.
Okay.
But if the level is so high, it can spill it everywhere and damage what the brain. Yes. The major function of the liver is to make sure that what the bilirubin is processed.
Okay.
Yes.
So that you can put it in feces
and can remove it from the body.
Move it. Okay. Oh, okay, got it. So if that doesn't happen, then that's where the brain is affected with the toxins and all of
What
that.
happens is just an overload where it can't handle it.
Right.
It leaks out.
Okay, good. Okay.
So we talked about the white blood cell already, the granulocyte, the agranulocyte. And we talked about different types. I showed us this particular slide already, right?
Mm-hmm.
This slide will identify this in blood smear. Now, the other thing to also look at is to look at the white blood cells. What are some of their characteristics? How they perform their function? Some of them can actually carry out amoeba-like movement. You know amoeba, right? Mm-hmm. What class of organism would you classify amoeba?
Amoeba? Okay, that's like a test organism. It's not really real, but you use it in place of, the real stuff.
Amoeba are classified as protozoans.
Yeah, okay.
Protozoans, right?
Okay.
One of the things that they are more like what? Force feet.
Okay.
They can use to glide and move to any point that they want to, right? So white blood cells can also move like that. They can move like amoeba, right? So they have like pseudopods, force feet with which they can move to the point of infection. Now, white blood cells can also carry what we call the epididymis. The epididymis means that they will go through the capillaries and squeeze through the walls of the capillary to get to the point of infection. White blood cells can also carry what we call chemotaxis. Chemotaxis is directional attraction to the point of infection. There are chemicals that are released by the pathogenic organism. Once these chemicals are released, the white blood cells can detect this chemical and they will make the point of infection to curtail the infection. A lot of time when you have part of the bacteria and also a lot of the white blood cells that you have in there, they can constitute what we call pus. Good? We talk about pus as part of exudates, right? That you have at the point of injury. That will say a lot of white blood cells and the organism. Good? So these are ways by which white blood cells can exhibit their actions, their movement to the point of infection. They can use pseudopods, like amoeba. They can also do what we call the epididymis, to squeeze through the walls of the capillary to get to the point of infection. They can also do chemotaxis, which is a directional attraction to chemical agents released by this infectious agent. So these are ways by which white blood cells carry out their actions in terms of migration to the point of infection. Good? Everyone, please. So what are the things? You have what? Amoeba-like movements. They can do what? The epididymis. They can also do what? Chemotaxis. Good? Everyone, please. Very good. Now, so that's what we have for the first half. So these ones, we talked about them the last time. We talked about some of their properties and everything. The only thing that I think we didn't talk about was to look at, we can see if you look at the bottom, you have percentages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the percentages, we can just remind ourselves. The example can ask you, which are the white blood cells? Remember, which of them is most abundant? All the white blood cells, which of them?
Neutrophils. Neutrophils.
Neutrophil, very good. So neutrophil is the most abundant, which is the next?
Sorry.
Lymphocyte,
Leukocytes,
which is the next?
monocytes, all of those ones.
And which is the last one?
Erythro.
So the most abundant is what? Neutrophil.
Neutrophils.
What is the next? Lymphocyte.
Neutrocytes.
What's the next? Monocyte.
Monocytes.
Eosinophil. Which
Eosinophils.
is the least? Basophil.
Basophils.
So these one, in most cases, you can vary. You can see what? 60 to 70%. Some people even say 75%. And here we are what? 20 to 25%. And here we are what? 4 to 8%. Some will say 2 to 8%, just variation. And here we are what? About what? 2 to 4%, or 3 to 4%. And this one we are what? Less than 1%. Let's just say 1%.
Neutrophil, 60 to 70.
So these are the range. In some texts you can see you can vary a little bit, but it's still within the range.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So how do we remember that? So the way to remember is to say, never let
me go.
eat
B.
banana.
Sorry, never let me eat bananas. Oh, that's cool. All right. Never let me go. Sorry, Professor. Okay. All right. Never let me eat bananas. Okay.
You know that what? Neutrophil is the most abundant, and the least abundant is what is the basophil.
Oh, okay.
So that could be a question in the exam. Which of the following is the most abundant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which of the following is the least abundant? So we know the most abundant is what?
Neutrophil.
Rarely they can ask you to arrange them in the sequence of abundance, right? But that's not very common. So platelets. When we look at platelets are derived from what we call what? The megakaryocytes, right? Take a look at the platelets. Look at platelet, please. That where are they derived from? Yeah, megakaryoblast. Megakaryoblast. Look at it. Also developing from what? The myeloid cell. Look at the precursor. Megakaryocytes. Megakaryoblast now divided into megakaryocyte. Megakaryocyte now wipe through the bone marrow, through the sinusoid. They are broken down into smaller segments called fragments. So platelets, how do we refer to platelets? We do not refer to platelets as cells. So how do we refer to them? Fragments of cells.
So is it good to say that megakaryocytes are bone marrow fragments? No.
The precursor from the bone marrow, we had the myeloid. The myeloid now gives rise to the megakaryoblast. Megakaryoblast now gives rise to megakaryocytes. The megakaryocytes are the ones that will now give rise to what the platelets. So let's go right on.
Okay.
This is the myeloid, which is derived from the stem cell. The myeloid has various plates that can develop. One of them is the platelets, and the precursor of megakaryoblast, which now comes to what? Megakaryocytes. Megakaryocyte now within the bone marrow is now broken down into small units known as the platelets. And this platelet, they are fragment of cells. Everyone, please. Everyone is good?
Yes.
Okay. Now, so let's go back to where we were. So we looked at all of these already. We talked about some of their properties. So let's take a look at this one just now. So this is platelets. So what are the functions of the platelet? We're going to see now.
Presenting blood loss.
It plays a major role in clotting. What do? They have to form what? Plaque. See? To temporarily what? Stop the bleeding. Even though they are not able to stop the bleeding completely, but they will decrease the amount of blood loss. That's the function of platelets. Good? The platelets are enough. They form what? Platelet plaque. They form a plaque.
Okay, so it forms a blood clot.
They form a plaque.
Plug.
Plaque would decrease the amount of blood loss, but it's not sufficient to stop the bleeding completely. So they contribute to the process of blood clotting. They are not by themselves able to stop the bleeding, but they will contribute a major part to decreasing the amount of blood loss. So those are platelets. And we're going to talk about their role just now.
Okay.
Number one, please.
Forms of blood.
So it's very iffy.
I think
They stop the blood, but they also can give you the blood clot.
they're not by themselves. They're not able to do that. They can contribute to a process of blood clotting, but there are other factors that will come into play to make sure eventually we establish what complete blood.
All right, so Professor, so what's the difference between a plug and a clot?
We're coming to that.
Okay, good.
That's the next thing.
All right.
Everyone is good?
Yes.
But platelets, they carry out what? They form a plug. A plug will decrease the amount of blood loss.
Oh.
But they are not sufficient to stop what they form the definitive clot.
Wow.
Other factors that will play some role, which we are going to discuss just now.
Oh, okay.
Good?
Yes.
That's platelet.
Okay.
So that's why when somebody bleeds, if you have a superficial bleed, it could be a problem with what? With the platelets. If you have a deeper bleed, it could be a problem with what? With the clotting factors. So these are the things you look at for platelet. If somebody have a superficial bleed, it will be a platelet disorder. If you have a deeper bleed, it could be a problem with what? With the clotting factors. We're going to look at that just now. Everyone, please.
Yeah, got it.
Look at that.
Yeah,
So
got
the
it.
next thing we have now is what we call stasis. Hemostasis. Hemostasis is the process of establishing blood clots. It's the process of forming what? Blood clots.
Blood
That's
clots.
hemostasis. A lot of time, I think last time when we were talking about blood clotting, you said coagulation.
Mm-hmm.
And I said it's not the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said when we get to the point, I'm going to what? Establish it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the point now. So the process of blood clotting, there are three major steps in blood clotting. Sometimes we can make it 4. So let's make it 4. But we'll talk about the 3 major steps. The first one is what we call vascular spasm. The second one is what we call platelet plug formation. Can you see now? Platelet plug formation. That's the second step. So the function of the platelet is to form what? A plug. And the last one is what we call coagulation. So coagulation is the step with the overall clotting process. Good? So the overall clotting process is not just coagulation. It's one of the steps that has to be observed for clotting to take place.
Okay.
What are the steps again? What's number 1?
Homeostasis. All right,
Number
hemostasis.
2 is what? Platelet plug formation. Number 3 is what? Coagulation. So in some texts, they can even add 2 more. They can add clot retraction. They can also add what? Clot dissolution. Maybe 5 steps. Well, we take what? Clot dissolution as the last one. Let's make it 4. But these are the 3 main things. Good? So let's now take a look at it one by one. Let's take a look at it one by one. So the first one we have is what we call vascular spasm. So when there is a cut, the blood vessel is damaged, what's going to happen? Start losing blood. Well, there's an intrinsic mechanism that will attempt to stop the bleeding. And that one, the vascular spasm, take a look at the vascular spasm, so that we can make it a lot easier to understand. So the vascular spasm, there are 2 chemicals that will be released. They can be more than 2, depending on what you're looking at, but let's look at 2 major chemicals. There's one what we call endothelin, and the other one we call that what? Thromboxane. Endothelin is released from the lining of the blood vessel. Thromboxane is released from platelets. So these 2 chemicals will attempt to constrict the blood vessel to come together, right? And an attempt to what? To decrease the amount of blood loss. But this process is not sufficient to stop the water bleeding. But it's the right step in the right direction. So we call that what? Vascular spasm. That's the first step. So there are 2 chemicals. It can be more than 2. You can see serotonin, you can see prostaglandin, you can see many other things in there. But these are the 2 main ones. Endothelin, thromboxane, like you can add serotonin, and other chemicals are released. But these chemicals, once released, what will they do? They will constrict the blood vessel to decrease the amount of blood loss. So we call that vascular spasm. But this process is not sufficient to establish a definitive blood clot. Yes, please.
So in the case where they're doing the blood clotting factor, right, for patients, and they use the PTT INR, is that the same thing as the PTT?
They want to look at the bleeding. How quickly
Okay,
can
good.
blood
All right. Okay.
then they can see
Yeah.
there's a clotting factor deficiency. So that's the first step. The second part is what we call platelet plug formation. Platelet plug formation. Now, this platelet plug formation, there are 2 reactions in this. We have what we call, divided by what we call what's the platelet release reaction. Platelet release reaction. have what you call platelet aggregation. So for us to get a plug, there must be what? A release reaction, and there must be what? Aggregation.
Aggregation.
So release reaction is what? The platelet will start releasing some chemicals. Those chemicals will now allow for the platelet to come together and aggregate. Once they aggregate, what do? They form a plug. The plug will now seal the opening a little bit. Seal the opening so that what? That will prevent further blood loss. Good? So these steps are under platelet plug formation. I'm going to show us just now. So let's say there's a bleeding somewhere now. This is the blood vessel. See, and there's a damage to the blood vessel along the line. See? This is the part that is damaged, right? Now, we have what? You can see that there are receptors there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of the endothelium of the blood vessel. And we have platelets. These are platelets. So these platelets will now connect with what? By what we call by a factor. This factor we call it what? The bond-Willebrand factor. Bond-Willebrand factor. We're going to see the name before the just now. We'll connect with what? To the damaged endothelium with what? The bond-Willebrand factor. And once they connect to the damaged endothelium, these particular platelets, now, against the platelets, they will start releasing chemicals.
Okay.
This is the first step. And these chemicals they release chemicals like what? ATP. They release chemicals like what? Thrombosine.
Okay.
And these chemicals, they're more like the music. Remember, there's a party you're going to somewhere. What happens? There's the music, and when people hear the music, what's going to happen? People will start coming from everywhere, right?
You start dancing.
So this ATP and thrombosine, they're more like things that will invite the other platelet. Well, there's something going on here, please. Everybody come and become part of the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of platelets will start coming around from everywhere. And when they come around, they connect to one another with what we call fibrinogen receptor. They use what we call the fibrinogen receptor. So what they use is what?
Fibrinogen.
Fibrinogen receptor. Receptor. Fibrinogen receptor. Good? Yes, go ahead.
What happens if your body doesn't produce platelets?
Then it's going to be a lot of bleeding. If you lose a lot of platelet, the platelet count is lower than what is bleeding. And they have to find a way to transfuse, get or address the primary cause of the problem. But you don't, when the platelets is on. So now, so the fibrinogen receptor now you can see connect the platelet members. What do we have now? You have what? The platelets are
aggregation.
So at the end of the day, what do? They have plugged this hole. See? So what do we have? All of these things what you are, platelet what? Plug formation. They form the plug, right?
Okay.
And that plug will further decrease blood loss, but will not stop the bleeding completely. Good?
Good.
So this is the second step.
Okay.
The second step is also a good step in the right direction.
So, Professor, what they're doing, they're building a wall?
More like what? Something to plug the opening. Plug the opening. So this is the second step, platelet plug formation. Good? So platelet plug formation, the first thing you have the platelet release reaction and also what? Platelet aggregation. So the damaged endothelium connects to the first platelet by bond-Willebrand factor. This bond-Willebrand factor allows this connection to be there, right? And after that you can see now this platelet will start releasing what? Chemicals like ADP, thrombosine, and that will cause platelet release reaction. So this chemical will now start to invite other platelet to come to the point of what of injury. And they form what they connect to one another and they form this massive plug right here. So this is what we call the platelet plug formation. Yes, please.
I was going to ask a question, but I thought about it.
Okay, good. So what happens when you apply pressure? Why did they say apply pressure?
The pressure will decrease what? Blood loss. But that's when you wire. It depends on the size of the injury, right? Mm-hmm. If the size of it is not much, the pressure can stop it. It's going to lead to what? Vasoconstriction, more like the first step that we have in here. And eventually what the whole process, this process will kick in naturally.
Okay.
But if blood loss is massive,
yeah.
The major vessel is damaged, the pressure might not stop the
pressure was okay.
You have to go there and stop the bleeding, cauterize and transfuse. So that's what you have. So this is the second step. Everyone please. Mm-hmm. And the last step is what? Coagulation.
Coagulation.
And coagulation is the most complex step. And this is the one that involves what? clotting factors.
Wow.
Or what? Clotting proteins, right? So that's the coagulation that we have right there. So let's take a look at this now. I want us to look at this now. So look at what? This is the platelet clot formation. I want you to look at what? This is the damage in the vein, right? So look at what the collagen, look at the platelet attaching to what? Look at the conformation factor. It attaches right there. Once it attaches, it releases chemicals. What are the chemicals? Thrombosin and ATP. When these chemicals are released, that will start to invite more that platelet. Can you see that platelet come in? Before you know it, the form of blood right now. So this is what we call what? Platelet clot formation. Good? And after this now, then we now go to coagulation. So coagulation has to do what? Clotting proteins. These proteins in the blood, ordinarily, they circulate without any problem. But they are not activated. They only become activated when there's an injury. When there's an injury, they become what? Activated. And they're going to follow two pathways. What are those pathways?
Intrinsic, extrinsic.
Extrinsic pathway.
Yeah.
So this is what you have basically. So the clotting factors, you see they're protein, you see the plasma, they're all going to an inactive state when there's no injury, become activated only when there's no injury. So then you shape all these things. And there are two pathways. The extrinsic pathway and what? And
extrinsic pathway.
So you're going to look at what the intrinsic pathway. So what is the purpose of coagulation? That's the question. What do you want to do with coagulation? What's the purpose?
Okay, the purpose of coagulation, go ahead.
Yes, what are we going to see that's going to let us know that the bleeding has stopped? What is the objective of the
You're gonna
coagulation?
see like a scar.
It's going to help to form what they call
A
fibrin.
scab, yeah, fibrin.
It's going to help us to form fibrin.
A scar.
Right? And this is what fibrin looks like. You see fibrin? Fibrin visual, right? Once you see fibrin, bleeding is going to start. So the purpose of coagulation cascade, the coagulation step is to form fibrin, which is our definitive. So how do we form the fibrin? By the combination reaction of both the intrinsic and the
Intrinsic.
pathway. So let's take a look at that. What is the intrinsic pathway? What are the intrinsic pathway? Yes, please.
So when someone get a big cut, right, and keep bleeding.
Now, when the vessel is so large,
Yeah.
then there's going to gain clotting, even there's no clotting now, because the rate of blood loss is quite greater than anything you're going to do. You have to go there and cauterize it. That's what you do, so you put it to stop it. Because the vessel will damage. Like somebody has a gunshot.
Yeah.
The gunshot is going to damage bigger vessels. And the rate of blood loss is going to be very massive that you're going to lose a lot of blood from your vascular system. Before that, and what is that? Shock.
Hypovolemic.
There's a minimum amount of blood. How delivering your vessels and that. Yeah, what we call what's cardiogenic shock. Right? That's why those kind of things you have to do. So you put it still down in
So the wound is so big, the vessel got damaged, it's not working.
you won't be able to stop it. So you have to put it in the right state. Everyone, please.
Yeah.
So when we take a look at this, I want you to look at this. So this is the coagulation cascade. Now, coagulation cascade, you can say this is the extrinsic pathway, and this is what the intrinsic pathway. Now, extrinsic pathway has to do with what? Everything what outside of what of the plasma.
Just okay.
And that leads to the activation of what we call tissue factor. Tissue factor is commonly called factor 3, also called thromboblast. So in intrinsic factor, you can see if tissue damage leads to the production of what? Thromboplastin. Thromboplastin, which is called factor 3. This thromboplastin now is activated by what? By factor 7 and also calcium. The calcium, and that will lead to the production of what? Activated factor 10. Activated factor 10. Good? So this one is what we call the extrinsic pathway. Now, intrinsic pathway, that's taking place what? Within the blood vessel itself, and activate what? Collagen wall. Once the collagen wall within the blood vessel is affected, now this will activate factor 12. Intrinsic pathway will activate factor 12. Inactive factor 12 is converted to what? Active factor 12. Now, active factor 12 now will now go and stimulate what? Inactive factor 11. Inactive factor 11 is converted to what? Active factor 11. Active factor 11 now will now skip factor 10. Where will it go to? Factor 9. Will now stimulate inactive factor 9. Inactive factor 9 is now converted to active factor 9. Active factor 9, under the influence of calcium, will now go all the way and simulate what the production of active factor, activated factor 10, which is right here.
Say that again. Oh my God.
Okay, don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to scale it.
Please don't.
But I want you to understand the sequence. So this cascade, in medical school, they always test this. There's no going about it. In medical school, you have to know the cascade. They can ask you to draw it, and depending on what the modality of the exam, or if they have questions, they can frame a clinical scenario that wants to see if you understand the cascade. But this is the basis. And also, what I'm going to let us see what we need in this cascade. But this is the step, so you can see. If you look at this factor 12, inactive become active, active factor 11, inactive become active, active factor 9, inactive becomes activated factor 9. Activated factor 9 will now stimulate what? Activated factor 10. But you can see that calcium is needed in both cases, calcium. So calcium is needed for both bodies. For the extrinsic pathway, we need calcium. For intrinsic pathway, we need calcium. So what is the conclusion? Both extrinsic and intrinsic pathway, they all work towards producing what? Activated factor 10, which is this one. So in one place, activated factor 10. So from activated factor 10 now we now have our common pathway. This is extrinsic, this is intrinsic. Now once we produce activated factor 10, what do we have? Common pathway. So what is the objective of common pathway? That's the one that's going to help us make different things, right? But that common pathway is going to help us to convert what? Prothrombin to thrombin. Prothrombin to what? To
Thrombin.
See? That's what we call prothrombin that will help with the process. But that's going to convert what? Prothrombin to what? To thrombin. Can you see thrombin? Yes. So thrombin is a rate-limiting step. It's the most important step that must be realized. If you are not able to realize thrombin, then there won't be any clotting. If you are not able to get to the point of thrombin, there won't be any clotting at all. So once you get the thrombin, you will have convert what? Fibrinogen to fibrin. And what did we say about fibrin? What did we say about fibrin? Fibrin is our
Clots, right. Clotting factor.
So look at thrombin again. Let's take it away from it. Can you see the thrombin? Thrombin will now cover what? Fibrinogen to what? To fibrin. So thrombin is so important. So if everything are able to get the thrombin, then it won't be anything. Good? Thrombin will convert fibrinogen to fibrin. Then once you get fibrin, you have one clot. No one. So this fibrin now, there's another factor called fibrin factor 13, fibrin stabilizing factor. Which you can see that right here. That will help to keep the fibrin branded and stable. Good? That's the distribution. Everyone? So this is the coagulation cascade. It's very important. So whatever I'm going to talk about what we need to know there. But this is about coagulation cascade. Everyone? Good. Now the last step, there are two other steps, but let's just take one. The last step is once you form the clot, the clot is formed, and if it's in the blood vessel, we want to make sure that we dissolve the clot eventually. We don't want the clot to get the blood vessel. Then we have what we call fibrinolytic agent. Agent that can lyse the fibrin so that the clot will not get the blood vessel. We don't want the clot to pass through the distal sites. Because of what the fibrinolytic agent is. Good? We're going to talk about that. That will be the last step. Even though sometimes you can see clot retraction, but it's not going to push it down. So this is the coagulation cascade. Everyone, please. Everyone. Okay. So this one will now take us to look at what we call the anticoagulants.
I got it.
What are anticoagulants?
Coumadin.
Coumadin, yes.
Aspirin. Gotta go.
Anticoagulants are, these are medications that are used to prevent